At first glance, Moon Mystery looks like an intriguing little first-person shooter, taking inspiration from games like Prey to hone in on the mystery elements while also delivering a rip-roaring experience. Unfortunately, this game is far from rip-roaring, and the more you play, the more glaring the issues become. Developed by Cosmo Scouts, this small indie team wastes little time whisking you off to the moon, where you start this adventure. You're joined by an AI computer and very little knowledge, outside of the fact that something has gone wrong. What happened? What is the truth surrounding the moon landings? And is this game worth the £16 asking price? The story is intentionally obfuscated, using that mystery box trope to keep things ticking along. While there aren't levels here per se, there are portal jumps to other areas that basically serve as new levels. So that's what we'll call them. Along the way, the game throws an equal balance of platforming, shooting and puzzling across a runtime that's probably around the 4 to 7 hour mark, depending on how easily you adapt to the controls and how many bugs you encounter. More on that shortly. The game mixes things up so you're not always lumbering about on foot. Sometimes you'll find yourself in moon buggies, spaceships, and a few other surprises I won't spoil here. There's definitely a desire to try and mix things up, but the level design is pretty poor and the gunplay is average at best. The levels are littered with large, open arenas with little to see beyond credit pickups and ammo. Oh, and loot boxes which include, yep, you guessed it, credits and ammo. There are random items you can examine, like photographs and sketches, but these are mostly reserved for the beginning of the game or story-specific sections. The puzzles range from simple physics-based to using the environment in interesting ways, like heating boxes to thaw ice on doors. It's pretty imaginative, and at times the puzzles here do feel like they've been inspired by Qube, given the aesthetic and vibe when these pop up. The platforming is definitely hit or miss though, and easily one of the weakest parts of the game. In a bid to try and get some platforming in, the devs completely abandoned the realism route with levels that honestly look like something out of Mario. There will regularly be big sections of pipe or levitating platforms you need to jump on to reach higher levels. Even worse, the jumping has a floaty feel to it, because of the lower gravity in space obviously, but platforms still move at normal speed, so sometimes you'll mistime a jump and die simply because it takes a while to land. As an FPS though, the main gameplay loop comes from your gunplay, and it's here where Moon Mystery will be a make or break for many people. The guns are pretty unbalanced, and in terms of weapon variety, the illusion of choice is here, but a lot of what you have are basically variations of machine guns and shotguns. It's a bit of a shortcut with programming different guns in, given you can just tweak little aspects, like movement speed or fire rate, without rendering a whole new set of specs, like a rocket launcher or grenade launcher, for example. Even worse, the game features 3 different shotguns, but given a lot of the combat rooms focus on mid to long range gunplay, these aren't actually the best choice. The enemies you face are pretty much all robots, with variations in color to signify whether they're melee-based, a grenadier, or a simple grunt. The AI is a complete mixed bag. Sometimes it's quite smart, lobbing grenades to keep you pinned down and flanking you, but similarly enemies do sometimes just stand around blankly, not firing or getting stuck on the environment. Alongside those on the ground, there are flying drones and also turrets too, which crop up more frequently the further into the game you get. The credits you collect can be used to buy new guns, along with equipping them with different loadouts like laser sights or suppressors. This one's pointless given there's no stealth involved here whatsoever. You also gain skill points too, through collecting schematics dotted around the levels, highlighted in blue, and these can give your player extra skills, ranging from regenerating health quicker, double jumping, or even adrenaline boosts to give yourself extra damage for a short period of time. There's not tons of variation to encourage multiple playthroughs, nor would I ever recommend that with Moon Mystery, but there's enough to prevent the game from stagnating completely. The voice acting isn't great, if I'm honest, and Sam in particular comes across as whiny at points, which doesn't do him any favors to endear audiences. The music is good though, although I had to go into the settings to turn down the music as it did have a tendency to drown out the characters talking from time to time. Whether this was intentional or not given the voices is up for debate. The graphics aren't bad for an indie studio, and some of the later levels, especially one involving ice and snow, is so beautifully rendered with the sun setting and the light glistening off the snow like diamonds. Of course, that's beautifully contrasted by smashing through robots and solving puzzles. As you do. Unfortunately, Moon Mystery's biggest problem comes from its performance and lack of QA testing, which is very noticeable. Christ, this game has issues. There's a persistent problem where if you connect a controller, every time you die, the controls go haywire and you're forced to either use a keyboard and mouse or shut the game down completely and restart. Outside of that, I've had my character fall through the environment, get stuck on items, and force a hard reset and have quest markers not pop up correctly. There are also grammatical errors through the game, surprise cutscenes that lock you out of areas you may have been exploring, and the story has some pretty glaring plot holes too. You can tell the game is not optimized for a controller because at one point, the game prompts to use an RC car to mine minerals, but it gives you the wrong button input. That's obviously not a great look, and the icing on the cake stems from the fact the story has some pretty big plot holes too. You'll definitely be thinking about these during the long bouts of driving, given the game emphasizes its mystery as a way of keeping you moving forward. Look, I get that this is an indie game and expectations need to be tempered, but given two other recent indies I've been playing recently, Keeper's Toll and While We Wait Here, have more polish than this, and both cost less combined than this one as well, it's hard to recommend Moon Mystery in its current state. It's not bad, and there are a few standout moments, but nowhere near enough to make this a game I'd recommend picking up anytime soon.